All right. So we're getting close. We only have like what, 3 weeks to go, and we all we have left really is the final project and the final exam, pretty much, because there's not a lot of homework left. So um, tomorrow is the kind of the deadline for proposing an idea on the preparing for the final project discussion. That discussion is there obviously to get you started. It asks you to do the first few steps of the final project, and also to ask you to post a short video of your idea. The video is not that critical, but the reason we have you do it in that discussion is so you can practice, because we want you to have like a little presentation of your results, and that is in the finals week. And so you get practice like using your cell phone, uploading the video, using Kaltura, getting all that figured out in this discussion. So it gives you a little time to figure all that out. And then also to see what other ideas people have. I pretty much comment on everybody's post, saying, hey, think about this, or maybe change it to this, or make sure you have the right data. So that's what we're working on really hard now. The deadline for the final project is Tuesday of finals week. That would be December 14th, I believe. And then the final exam needs to be done by the 16th of December. And I will probably start opening up those probably on Wednesday of this week, just in case people want to start submitting them. If you do your final project, and I'll go through it, I'll score it with the rubric and put some comments on it and stuff. You will have the opportunity to improve your grade based on those comments, as long as you've completed it, before that Tuesday, and then I'll post those, and you can repost again. So it gives you an opportunity to learn and improve. But if it's all good and you're happy with your grade, then you're good to go. So you know what? I'm gonna have to pause here a second. I've got a repairman at my door. Oh, good. My wife's doing it. All right, great. All right. So I will just start with on the top of my. I have Hunter as my top, so I'll just ask Hunter first. What's your project? What's your question? Where are you at with it? And maybe we can talk through some of those things.
Okay, so it was hard to find information about my store I was working at, so I kind of changed my idea because I know hate crimes went really high after COVID for Asian Americans. So I think I wanted to do something along that, like seeing how the last 15 years, the proportions of hate crimes, and then comparing that with the last 2 years during COVID. Would that work?
Yeah, if you could use your historical data, as your kind of like your population proportion. Those rates, yeah. Do you approximately what those rates are? Is it like percent of crimes, or percent of hate crimes, or just percent
I
of
was
the
I was gonna do
population?
I was gonna do hate crimes because I was gonna find the standard last I don't know 15 20 years, and each year will be my each member of my population, and then I'd compare the last percentage of hate crimes towards Asian Americans in the last 2 years and comparing that to the population of the last 20. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And yeah, well, yeah, post your links. The only thing that I could see might be, you might have to tweak it, because let's say the proportion of, compared to all crimes, it's such a small proportion that it's going to be hard to analyze. But you can make that, like if you said, out of all hate crimes, this is the proportion that were directed toward Asian Americans, and then now with that, so you'd have a, instead of like 0.1% of all crimes, it's maybe 5% of all hate crimes, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I was gonna definitely narrow it down to just hate crimes because like you
yeah,
said, it's easier to analyze. Because if I did all crimes, yeah, that would probably be
yeah,
so.
there's yeah,
Yeah, so hate
so
crimes, I
yeah,
think
no,
it's
that,
6% or something like that, or which would
yep,
so that would be easier to do, wouldn't it?
yeah. And you might want to just maybe do a brief look at, because hate crimes didn't even exist, and historically they didn't call them that. It's a new designation in law. So you might want to figure out when that date when that started happening, they started tracking the data, maybe get
Yeah, that
that.
sounds good. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Because what's it called? What is that called? What's this be like a potential measurement error, right? It's kind of like all of a sudden we have all of these crimes happening. Oh, it's because we actually are keeping track of them finally. It's like, so sometimes there's a potential error that happens there, but yeah, just do your research, put the links in, make your population proportion the historical or normative kind of rate. And then like you can say, find some data that's more recent and say, then you can do your one proportion z-test for difference and then confidence interval and do some analysis that way.
I just thought it'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like it.
I was gonna,
Cool.
I still have to propose it, but would like defense spending from America versus like England
Oh,
be a good
yeah,
one?
like proportion of GDP and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then I was gonna
Yeah,
compare it and say the US spends too much on defense.
yeah. So
That was gonna be my hypothesis or whatever.
yeah, so what might be interesting here? Let me think about this. So you can figure out like essentially what proportion of the economy is going towards it, right? Is what you
Right.
want to kind of
I'm gonna
gauge
go
that.
through like 5 years a piece or something. So like from 2021 to 2016, I'd say.
Yeah, and maybe maybe you want to even look at, I don't know, even look at North Korea or China,
Oh,
or
China
some.
would be a good one.
You might want to look at China. Might actually be a better one because you're going to want to look at an economy that's similar in size,
True. Yep.
maybe, or more similar, because the UK is, those are small countries
True.
in comparison, and they are essentially one. They're all bound together, and
Yep.
some of their defense spending is paid towards the NATO, and then everybody contributes. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, but
Sure.
I don't know all that. But yeah, that. So I'm trying to think. Like, let's say it's, I don't know, 2% of GDP or whatever it is. 5% of GDP is the rate at which we're spending
Okay.
every year, kind of thing. And then you could look at those other rates to see if they're significant. The thing is, for sampling, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to say, I have only one country in my sample, and then this other country, I just have this. What might be better is maybe, I'm trying to think, if you could take like the top 20 or 30 size countries and look at that and use that as your sample.
And look at
then
the percentages of GDP.
Yeah, and maybe doing more aggregate.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of contrived, but I mean, it could be, so you could take like the top 30 countries, find the percentage of GDP for all of those, and then make that, and then essentially combine all of those and make that your kind of like the worldwide spending average or something like that. I don't know if that might work. And then you can have like an N of like 30 or something like that.
Right. And then you could see like what the standard deviation is between like the United States compared to an average country.
Yeah, or you could compare US to the rest of the world. So and this do a one, so the thing is you're going to try to do a one sample z-test, right, for proportion.
Right.
You need to compare, maybe what you could do is say the US is this proportion, right? Say it's 3% or whatever it is. And you said, then I went out and sampled these other 30 countries, and their average proportion was this. And then you could do a one sample z-test for proportions, say it's 2% or something, I don't know, 5%, whatever it ends up being. That would be kind of an interesting way. Or you could actually take I'm sure you can probably find that like the top 100 countries percent of GDP, or base it off of, yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. But
Would you recommend? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Would you recommend putting that in like StatCrunch and then doing it that way?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna use your, say like your null hypothesis would be P equals, let's say, 0.03, right? And then your sample proportion would be whatever that is for all the countries, and then you type that in and say it's 0.02 and or something
Mhm.
like that. I don't even know, but and then your N would be, say, in 80 countries, N would be 80, and then you could compare to see if it's statistically significantly different percentage of GDP.
What would
That
like
might that might be a way to attack that.
Okay. What would be a good way to like what would be the would it be like a 0.1 or like a 0.01 or what would be like the I
The
forget what
alpha
that's called.
level.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So don't worry too much about alpha level. So this is kind of the movement in statistics is, instead of, like, we usually use 0.05 or something, right? Instead of having a
Right.
hard and fast rule about rejecting and failing to reject, what's more important is interpret the p-value. So if you get a p-value that's like 0.000001, you're like, wow, that's really significantly different then. And we probably would reject the null, and they're not the same. But if you get a p-value that's 0.04, right, you're like, well, yeah, that's below 0.05, but is it really strong evidence? What it says is it shows us there is some evidence that there is a difference, but it might be just explained by randomness. So what you're really doing with p-value analysis is you're trying to find the probability of committing a type 1 error. And if you remember from our last exam, the type 1 error is to reject the null, but you were wrong. So it depends on the consequence of that. So for instance, if let's say you're like, I reject the null, the US has a higher proportion of GDP. Great. Now, what if you're wrong? Does anybody die? No, it's fine. It's just you're doing analysis of some data. So that's really, in the eyes of the beholder, the significance that would need to be shown to prove that there's something going on. Is that helpful at all? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't get too worked up about picking an alpha level.
Okay.
Do the analysis and then type out your interpretation of that p-value.
Okay.
Kind of like what I just said, like it shows there's some evidence, or there's strong, really strong evidence, or there may be something going on here, or I don't know. That's where the human part of interpretation is more important than a hard and fast, we're going to reject the null and this is what's going down. Because you're never sure with statistics. You're just, with the data you're given, you're trying to get your best assessment of what's really going on here, which usually causes you to retest and retest and retest, and people build consensus based on analyzing the data over and over over a long period of time. So this is just we're just kind of just dipping our toes into thinking a question, try to find some data that help us answer that question, do some quantitative analysis, and interpret that analysis. And for a first course in statistics, I think it's great, just because you're thinking statistically, you're applying what you're learning. It's something you're interested in. Others will be interested, and you can present that. So I think, yeah, go for that. And if you're like, okay, here's what I found, blah blah blah, the best thing you can do is just keep replying to your thread, and that preparing for the final discussion. It would be very helpful for everybody else to also see that. Just like what we're having this conversation right now, we can do that on the thread. Well, here's the data I found, and blah blah. And I'll say, well, maybe take the top 80 countries and find that, and then you know what I'm saying. So we could keep that, and then you can post those links there, and keep the conversation going, kind of in front of everybody. How's that sound?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Cool.
How
I
do
like
you
that idea.
so explain to me the video again. You take a video of me like explaining my hypothesis or what?
Yeah. So this first one is just you're just gonna say, hey, I'm just interested in the percent of defense spending by country. So this is my question, and here's how I'm gonna analyze it. And just so this intro one is very brief. Pretty much, it's forcing you just to practice getting the technology figured out. How you can get the video, get on your computer, upload it into Kaltura, post it in discussion board. That's really what we're trying to get you to do. Because then when you do your final project and you get that all done, you're going to make a brief presentation. It doesn't have to be very long. You can say, here's my question, here's the data, here's my analysis, and here's my interpretation of those results. So people can, kind of quickly, it's just like if you were in a class and said, all right, tell us about your project and what you found out. That's all you're doing.
I got you. I got to go to school, so I got to leave. Thank
All
you.
right. I'll look forward to your post.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Hunter, I see your hand. You got a quick question?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through with that idea, and like you said, if you come with like something, can you just like send me an email about how I could tweak it after I submit it to you or something?
I would suggest do it on the discussion board, because every
Okay.
time you post on the discussion board, I get flagged and I
Okay.
will respond to you there. Because then the benefit is it's not just you and I having that conversation, then the whole class can kind
For
of
sure,
look
because
at
I'm sure
that.
people have the same questions I would most likely.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah, very much.
and when we get started on this project, can we do like these video calls like once or twice a week just to
Sure.
show what we're doing and like run it by you and see if we're going in the right direction?
Yeah, and I'll be even commenting on your posts but yeah, we can do this a lot, especially when it gets down to, you
Yeah,
really got to
because
get it done in the final and stuff. So
my schoolwork's really starting to go down now. It's more just studying for final stuff. So like I have a lot of time. That's why like this kind of like video call stuff would be pretty helpful so I can get that project like done to like the best of my ability.
yeah, I mean, like I said, there's not a lot more left to cover. We're going to be doing chapter 11 next week, which is it's on analysis of variance and a few other things, goodness of fit. There's not a lot of new content. So yes, if you've got time, and this course kind of crescendoed at chapter 7 through 9 test. Now we're just applying what we're learning and getting ready for a final exam. There's no reason you couldn't knock this out, even this week if you wanted, and get
Awesome.
it done ahead of time and submit it, and then I can give you feedback. And yeah, that's wonderful if you want to do that.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna do. So, all right, I'm gonna head out of here because I have to go drop my friend off at the airport in a couple minutes. So,
Okay.
all right, have a
Yep.
good one.
Just let me know when you want to do this again. Just shoot me a message and we'll set it up.
Will do. Thank you so much.
You bet. Have a good one. All right, Marwa, you're next.
Yeah, my turn.
What's your idea?
My idea was about like the women in Iowa, the age between 20 to 40, they die most from COVID.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I remember your post on that.
Yeah, I was like, my idea was like ragged in that post.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I do remember your post. I love this. This is so a lot of the COVID questions or projects, they get a little tricky, but I like the way you're trying to parse it out into a specific age group and gender.
Mm-hmm.
So what you might want to do is say, you know what, here is the death rate in America due to COVID, all ages, right?
Okay.
And use that as your population proportion.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's, I don't know, 5 out of 1,000 that get it. I don't even know what it is. 1 out of 1,000, whatever that proportion is. Use that as your population proportion.
Mm-hmm.
Then what you could do is take that specific demographic and find that rate as well and compare it. The bad thing about doing with humongous sample sizes, statistically, it always ends up there will be a statistically significant difference.
Uh-huh.
Because when you have a sample size of millions, if there's any difference at all, it'll show up as statistically significant. The question is it practically significant? So for instance, instead of 1 out of a million, it's 4 out of a million, let's say. Okay. Statistically, that might show very big difference, but practically, it's such a small proportion that it's hard to say it's measurable. If you remember earlier in the course when we were doing probability stuff, when we're doing things, we should, if the probability gets to be under 5% chance of happening, it gets really hard. It gets harder to measure. your N times your P is, if that's not at least 5 occurrences, at least 5 occurrences, it gets hard to measure. So it's not a huge deal. Where are you getting your data from for that demographic? Is it just Iowa? Is it national?
I got
Or-
the first one like as a national for like all the states,
Okay.
and then I will just take from Iowa, the proportion of Iowa, the women that died, the age from
Okay.
20 to 40.
Cool. Yeah, okay, so then you could even just look at that demographic nationally and that demographic locally, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and you could use so let's say the national proportion, whatever that is, use that as your population, and then if you have your more local, like if it's county or state data, you can use that and just do a 1 sample z-test for proportion, okay?
Okay.
Because essentially your sample is coming from within that larger population of the United States. Yeah, I like the idea of shrinking it down to a specific demographic. Makes it a little more manageable, hopefully too.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
thought about different idea, but when I go to find the data, I don't find it.
Okay.
Or like
Yep.
they just not.
Well, and that's why this is really important, like right now, for us to, it's great to have a good question, but we also need to find some good data, right? So this is why this is the time to be cranking on this, talking about it, seeing if you need to readjust but if you're finding, everything you need, you're good to go.
Okay.
Cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I was asking about the test
Yeah.
too. Like the problem is like when I do the test, I just use everything that I remember. That make me just like confused and put some different stuff in the test that doesn't need it, especially the last test.
Yeah, the chapter 7 through 9 exam.
Yeah.
Yep. And hopefully there was no surprises on it. I mean, did it look similar to the practice exams you did?
Yeah, it was similar, but I forgot totally that I need to use the other paper. I was just having the Z-score paper in front of me. And
Oh, you
I
had
did
the
that.
formula sheet and stuff?
Yeah.
And so, what I would so for the final exam that's coming up, obviously review all the old exams, and I'll be posting the video on that. I have one student that's been having some health issues, and so I'm really trying to accommodate them as much as I can. But at some point, I'll just gonna have to. Anyway, when go over the old exams,
Okay.
and then the comprehensive final review has some videos like this of reviews. There's some examples and problems to do, and students do honestly pretty well on the final if they've done those basic things.
Okay.
So, and then we can do a review like this if you'd like. So, in fact, that's the final is not due until December 16th. So we've got 2.5 weeks here until that's due. But so once you get your final, what I would suggest is just crank on your final project right now, kind of get that cemented, get that submitted, and then transition over into studying for the final exam. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said to Hunter, you can knock this project out. You could even get it done this week if you wanted. If you're you post your idea, I reply, looks good, blah blah blah. Start writing it up. You can submit it. It'll be in the finals folder, the actual project, but you can get in there. I'll open it up probably on Wednesday is when I'll open up, and then I can give you feedback, and you can tweak it and improve your grade if there's something not quite right with it. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, yeah, let's definitely do some review for the final. It'll probably end up being like next week, I'm guessing, is when most people want to, once they get their final projects done, they're transitioning and they go through all the review materials, then let's do some final exam review. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. Well, good job. That's good work.
Oh, thank you.
You bet. All right. Hey, Jillian, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Great. What's your idea?
Well, I don't really have a great idea, and I was wondering if you could help me,
Sure.
but because I just don't know how much data do I need? Like, I had one idea, like to see, um, like how much greater female teachers there are than male teachers, like in the United States, and I found some data, but like not a large amount, so I just didn't know if that would work or not.
Yeah. No, it's so whenever we're looking at, like, you've seen a couple other projects we've talked about this this disproportionate, right? We're trying to measure this disproportion to see if it's significant or not. If you're just looking at like percentage of like overall teachers, male and female, not really going to be a question that's conducive to being answered, right, for this project. So what you're going to want to do is nuance that and say, okay, great. In the United States, 70% of teachers are female. Great. How about Polk County, Iowa? What percentage are females? Or you might say maybe by subject or by age category. Is it different? Maybe you can even look at college graduates. What percentage are male and female? And what are the ones that are actually in the field 10 years later? Stuff like that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, or like if you had any other better ideas or something. I just couldn't really come up with anything.
Well, it sounds like you've already gone out and dug around and found some data, right? You're trying to find
Yeah,
some
I
good
found one
resource that can give
website.
you that.
It was it's like the NCES, the National Center for Education Statistics. So it has quite a
Yes.
bit on like the total teachers or like elementary teachers versus secondary
Mhm.
teachers, and it also has like race and ethnicity and the bachelor degree or that sort of stuff background,
Very good. So yeah, that's a
salary.
very so that's an excellent site to go to. So go to that, see what they're actually giving you, and then align your question to what they're telling you more. So that will help guide you. So for instance, let's say they're telling you uh, even by state, proportion of males and females that teach, right? And then they have an aggregate, maybe national number. So you could look at, you live in Iowa, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you can just look at Iowa compared to the nation then, and use your national proportion as your population, and then use the Iowa one as your sample, and see if there's a difference. Like if we have a disproportionate number of males or females that teach, or what? Yeah, and what are you going into education?
Yeah, so that's why you're like kind of interested me.
Yeah, what grade are you interested in teaching?
Specifically elementary, but probably like third grade or second grade.
Cool. So elementary ed. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could even dig more specifically into that, right? So there's I don't know what the percentage is of females that teach elementary ed. I'm guessing it's around 90, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or very high percentage.
Yeah.
That might be interesting to see um, if that's changed over time.
Yeah.
Like go back 20 years and find that proportion, and then maybe look now or look in Iowa. You could even do a trend line analysis. You could
Mm-hmm.
say, all right, in 2000 it was this, and 2005, you can do all these data points and do, like in chapter 10, we did a linear regression to see if it's trending in a certain way, and you can analyze that slope to see if it's trending up. Probably don't need to do that. I'm just throwing out ideas in case that might help somebody else that watches this. But I think, yeah, dig through that site, and make it even more specific to like your area. Maybe make it very specific to elementary education. Maybe even make it specific to your geography, or yeah, I've had people do projects on proportion of teachers that stay in after 5 years, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like, or like even if you want to say differentiation on degrees, master's degrees or not,
Mm-hmm.
there's a ton of questions that could be answered there. So I was encourage you to dig through there. I think something will fall out that really intrigues you more, and then just write it up and post it, and let's continue the conversation. How's that sound?
Yeah. So, like if I post it and I have a few things that need tweaked or fixed, like maybe
Yes.
I'd email you or respond or
Just
get back
post
on
it right in the
another call
discussion. Yeah, just put it on the discussion board, and I'll
Mhm.
reply back. And if it's not satisfactory, if you need to have more clarifying, obviously give me a call or text. But that's a really good thing for everybody to kind of see what you're thinking. And I'm not freaking out on this discussion board. If you post anything, I'm just going to give you a 10 out of 10. I don't really
Okay.
care. I'm just
That's good to know.
and yeah, and I'm just going to give everybody 10 out of 10 on this. I just want people to post so we can exchange the ideas and
Mhm.
help their projects get higher quality. So
Okay.
cool.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for
so
helping
don't worry
me
about
nail
having
it
a
down.
perfect
Yeah.
post. I mean, even if you don't have the video and all that stuff, I'm not freaking out on people on that.
Mhm.
I'm doing it because I want you to practice. So when it's finals week, you're not freaking out on how to do that.
Okay. Perfect.
Cool.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to your post.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later. Hey, Marwa.
Hi, I found like the total deaths of women in Iowa from COVID is 47%. Do I just had to find the total amount of deaths from COVID of women in all Iowa? No, total deaths of all Iowans from COVID, then just do the math from the 47 to get the number?
Possibly. Tell me what's the data that you've been given? Did you say 47% of women in that age category have gotten COVID? Is that what you said?
Yeah, and died from it.
And died from it.
Yeah.
So are you saying like 47% of all COVID deaths have come from that age group?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that out of like if 100 people die of COVID, 47 of them are in that age group and
Mhm.
gender. That seems really high. Because that's only a 20-year gap, right, of
Yeah.
age?
Yeah.
That seems extremely high that one age group would have, and only one gender would have almost half of all of the deaths.
That's
That
what I
seems,
was like thinking.
yeah, that doesn't seem quite right. Well, put the link on your post and we can check
Okay.
it out.
Okay.
So yeah, so if I like what you're going on. So you could just be analyzing. I'm only going to look at people who have died of COVID, right? That's kind of, and then you can say, in the United States, it's been whatever proportion. Females in this age range account for this proportion of all deaths in COVID.
Okay.
That can be your population proportion, right?
Mhm.
And then you can say in Iowa, that rate is this, and that can be your sample. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Post your sources on there, and I'll click on them, and if something needs to be tweaked or if I see something weird, I'll comment. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
Let me see if there's anybody else. I think that's it. So I think I'm going to stop the recording, and I will post this recording for everybody to watch. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Well, let me know if you want to do this again anytime. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.